Hi, Mr. Craven.
Hi, Jessica. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I know you're majorly busy on Scream 4, and I appreciate you taking the time.
That's all right. This is my baby.
Well, I am very excited about this because I believe this is like the since Cursed, this is the first like purely horror film that you've done in like 5 years, isn't it?
Uh, Embarrassingly so. I think it is. I was producing some remakes of my own, but this is the first thing, and it's the first thing I've written and directed since New Nightmare,
That's what I was
except for Paris Je t'aime, the five minute segment on that.
right. So I was going to ask, what brought on the urge to do a new horror film after that long of a period, and the writing and you're doing triple duty. How awesome is that? And
Well, it was just an opportunity. My wife, Ia LaBlanca, produced also, and she was really the one that did all the heavy lifting there. Um, it was a chance given to me by Andrew Rona then of Rogue to do something that was just totally my own, and that I would write and then direct. I pitched him an idea. He liked it very much, and so it was gave me the opportunity to be like the auteur, which I always get, and that just is tremendously attractive.
how much real control does it give you doing all three of those jobs on a film?
Well, this was complete control. I mean, final cut, everything. It was basically our film. So I had worked with Andrew on all the screams, and because he used to work under Bob Weinstein, so I knew him very very well and for a long time. So we had a very close friendship and working relationship, and so it was about as ideal as it gets.
That's great. And in this day and age, I know a lot of problems can come up with. Sometimes you get studio interference, and you kind of lose the ability to get that final cut on things. So that's wonderful to hear. Um,
Well, also just based on an idea of my own and then written by me. So it was like just completely forming, and making a film that was completely from yourself, and that is just it's a wonderful feeling. It's a great gift, from a studio, from Andrew Rona.
so, what can you tell us about the movie without giving too much away? I know the basics of it, but it looks very creepy from what I've.
Well, it is, I call it Stand By Me with Knives because, or Stand By Me with a Knife, because it really, since I had this rare opportunity to do something that kind of is a film that I would like to see. I always tell when people ask me, what's the basic advice you can give us for writing a film script? I say, write a film that you've never seen before, in any way, shape, or form, and something that you would love to go see. So that's what this film is. So it's not like it's not like Saw 10, or it's not like anything else that I've seen, and it has a lot of humanity to it, a lot of humor to it, and it's really a coming of age movie. It's set with really even younger kids than normally a horror film is set with, more in the age range of a Stand By Me.
Gotcha.
So it has a certain innocence to it. At the same time, kids are getting killed and all of that, and a lot of times it's very scary. But it also has this kind of wonderful arc of of the lead character, um, Bug, who that's his nickname. His actual name is Adam, but he starts the film incredibly naive, almost some of the kids suggest a little bit slow, and as his those of his friends that die, as they die, he gets their attributes, their intelligence, or their insights, depending on the character. So you have this wonderful, growth of a character sort of before your eyes, and kind of mirroring in an exaggerated way, sort of the way that kids develop into adults right before your eyes. So that it's quite unique in that sense, so that he becomes, in a sense, the composite character of all of his friends and the people around him as they are killed by this ruthless killer, and he becomes more and more powerful and smart and canny and able to fight. So it's a lot of fun just to watch that performance on the part of Max.
That's awesome. So, there's that great story behind Freddy Krueger and how he was inspired. What inspired this new supernatural boogeyman that you've brought to the screen?
Well, it's in an odd way. This is probably one of my most personal films. I mean, people were always saying, why don't you do a film about growing up fundamentalist and growing up in the world that you grew up in, and I just felt this is really inspired by my own life of coming onto the sort of fundamentalist church and feeling going out into the world feeling very naive and not aware of a lot of things, and then just sort of from the people I met and was around in the course of teaching and then in making movies, kind of learning and taking on attributes that I wouldn't have had, I think, by just obviously living in a vacuum. So I think my own life is kind of the inspiration, if you would allow me that. It's just that sense of moving from innocence to knowledge, and the getting of wisdom, is a phrase that kept coming to my mind. It's a phrase used often in philosophy of that moment in your life when you start to have knowledge that isn't just what this object is or who was born in what date, but the getting of wisdom in the sense of understanding how life itself works. And that is what this film is about, in a way. And at the same time, trying to stay alive when somebody is, trying to kill you and you can't figure out who it is.
Gotcha. Well, and I was one of the questions I had was, you have a real knack for films about haunted children and teenagers with issues, with parent issues and that kind of thing, and like with Shocker, Nightmare on Elm Street, and movies like that. And it sounds like that's kind of where you draw a lot of that from, is your own personal, your history with growing up in that kind of environment.
Yes, and I also, I had a father who was quite a mystery to me. I mean, he died when I was quite young, so a lot of my knowledge of him, I have a very few memories of him, and some of which are kind of scary. Not that he was a horrible person, but he just, I think he was stern. But trying to figure out who your father really was, and then the second level of that is how much of your father is in you, is something that really fascinates me. And Bug's character is like that because, he's on a search for who his father was because his mother is a single mother, and it becomes more and more relevant to the mystery he's trying to penetrate, is to know who his father was and what role his father had in his life and in the life of the community. So I don't want to tell too much more about it without giving away story, but it is a son's journey into knowledge as well as just a boy's journey.
Gotcha. So I have two questions specifically for the film. Is it going to be an R-rated horror film, or is this going to be more of a PG-13?
No, it's both for language and violence. It's pure R.
Oh, yay!
And we want it to be like that. It's not like a soft film in the sense of the violence and blood and things like that. It's very much of a full R-rated horror film. It just has a lot of character in it, and it has sections of the film where you don't have just teenagers running around being chased by somebody with a knife. Although it does have that, believe me. But it is just I'm kind of asking my audience to take a leap with me and say, how about a different kind of horror film, a totally different kind of horror film that has areas of innocence and has areas of just human humor, and at the same time can be scary and kind of a big mystery also. And I hope they'll come with me on that journey, But it's not like anything they've seen, and although it has elements of pretty much everything they've seen of mine, which is a combination of humor and great character stuff, and also very, very scary stuff.
But that's what we like, so that's
yeah. No, I hope to put everything that people like of mine, but also some things maybe they've never seen before.
So I was wondering, is this still going to be presented in 3D, and how, if it is that a retroactive redo of the film? How is that? How does that work?
Well, this is a very interesting thing to me, and the film was shot in 2D and never thinking that it would be in 3D. And obviously, during the course of the making of this film, and this film has gone through a series of delays caused by the studio changing hands, and then kind of defining itself. That is Rogue from Universal, and there was a long period of kind of just where the film was waiting. Where we're all waiting for everybody has to get their sort of affairs sorted out. During that time, the 3D kind of hit everything. Starting with Avatar, obviously, and the sense was that to compete in the market, we had to have a 3D version of the film. And I have to tell you, I agonized over this because, the Clash of the Titans, sort of a bugaboo of something coming out that really didn't look well and didn't look good and was rushed and so forth. And the studio asked me just to go and look at Clash of the Titans the way it actually came out of the place that does the conversion. And I thought, I'm going to see this horrible, murky thing. And I went in and the film looked fantastic. So I asked, what is the difference between this film as it was released, with everybody complaining about how it looked, and Avatar, where nobody was complaining about that? And it had to do, apparently, with the fact that it was rushed into release, and that the quality control that was exerted by Cameron and everybody, that was working with him to make sure every theater was showing it properly, because the projection of 3D is very, very different. You have to have a projector that really is, properly calibrated, and the proper screen and the light level is much, much higher than normally is required. And a lot of theaters will kind of cut corners in that area. But the actual product, as it came out of the lab, if you will, was quite wonderful. And I started to think, look, if this is the coming thing, somebody compared it to me like the difference between movies before sound and after sound. And I said, okay, so I know there were a lot of people at that transition period that said movies should never have sound, right?
Right.
I don't want to be one of those people. So what if we take this film that is, it's not spears coming into your face and, out into the audience, but it does have wonderful sort of lyrical passages and sort of dreamlike passages and everything else. And what if we did it subtly, but use those portions in a way that doesn't hit you over the head with it, but actually explored the possibilities of the 3D in a way that wasn't sensational, wasn't just for the sake of we can do this, but subtly changed the way the brain actually saw it, and that really appealed to me. So it's there in 3D for people that want to explore that whole new emerging world, and it's there in 2D for those that would rather see it that way. And I'm taking a chance, frankly. But I felt like this is the best chance for the film to get out there in front of as many eyes as possible, and also for those that want to kind of explore, as I am exploring, the sort of emergence of 3D as quite potentially something that's going to be pervasive, as opposed to a novelty. I thought this was the time to do it.
Great. Well, that's probably one of the best answers I've gotten. I know a lot of directors are very... I know with, I think, Clash of the Titans, he didn't want that done. It was kind of taken out of his hands, but it sounds like you took a lot more of a better approach to it with, I want to be involved and see the depth of what they're doing with this and why. So
yeah, it's like almost in the same month Roger Ebert came out and said this is a travesty and nobody should be subjected to this sort of technique. And then, people like Scorsese and Tim Burton were using it and as just the next step in the evolution of film. And I just decided to take that more proactive approach to it, and also, to remain engaged in it. So, even though I'm directing another film now, the studio has been great, and they're flying people out here I'm in the middle of Michigan, and we're looking at our film, in a local theater that's state of the art, and doing that, continuing the process with me, very much as the auteur of it all.
That's great. So I the one thing I personally wondered was the name change to the film. Was that your idea or was that the studio's? Because it just reminded me just slightly of like a very dream type of thing, like maybe trying to build on the Nightmare the Nightmare films because it sounds like the prayer you do at bedtime.
Well, it is the prayer that you do at bedtime, and that is a very much a part of the film. That's why we chose the title when Bug, unfortunately, after the film was written, it was discovered, oh, by the way, Friedkin is coming out with a film called Bug, and we can't use that title. So that was kind of hard to take. Not that I don't like Billy,
No.
we have a very nice relationship, but we had to give a different title, and the film begins with that prayer, and it's hanging over the bed of the central character. And the film is about souls, really. It's about the getting and taking of souls, and Bug, in essence, gathers the souls of his friends that die. And then there's also Bug is a devout bird watcher and just loves animals in general, but birds especially, and in particular the California condor. And we have the legend of the California condor being the gatherer of souls, and that the Native Americans saw the condor as sacred because it gathers the souls of all the animals that it eats. So it clears the earth of death, and it saves the souls and carries them with him. So that becomes the symbol of Bug. In a sense, a creature that is thought by some to be ugly and horrible, but is really doing something quite profound.
That's awesome. I had no idea about that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a way of looking at something that's usually scourged and like, wait a minute, this is something wonderful. And I'm an avid bird watcher and a member of California Audubon Society, and I'm on the board, and I've visited the Condor Sanctuary, and it means a lot to me too. So this, as I said, it's a very personal film.
Personal film. So you and I think George Romero have had more remakes done of your films than just about any other directors out there.
Really?
Only
two.
Well, we've had Hills Have Eyes, Nightmare on Elm Street, and
no, it's Nightmare. Oh, I don't count that one. I just do it. That's a non-event.
So
that never happened, did it? Really?
So truly, how I will bluntly put whatever you say. How do you really feel about them, and do you think they're? I mean, do you really believe that they need to be done? I mean, in some cases.
Well, look, as somebody once told me, I have a friend, Harry Narnitsky, who is a film encyclopedia, and he said, The Maltese Falcon. Do you like that film, Wes? I said, yeah. I think it's really just a fantastic original script. I said, yeah. And he said, well, it was the fourth remake. So that kind of says it right there. First of all, a remake can be great, even better than the original, although I hope that wasn't quite the case. But that's one way of looking at it. That is just a different way of looking at it than the normal press thing of these shouldn't be done. And there are a lot of other examples like that. The second thing is that The Hills of Eyes and Last House on the Left were unique in my career in that they were made with a friend, two different friends, but Peter Locke in the case of Hills of Eyes and Sean Cunningham in the case of Last House. And we own the films after 30 years. Entirely. So we had this wonderful thing of actually having lived long enough to, be in possession of our films again. And we both of us, Sean and I and Peter and I separately have laughed about the fact that when we made those original contracts and we saw that, we would get possessions of films after 30 years, we all thought universally, well, we'll be long dead, with the lifestyles we were leading in those days. And here we are. So it was kind of more of a fun thing of let's do it again, and we can make some money on it, on a film that didn't give us great returns back in the day, and we can also work with some young directors and meet like an Alex Aja and have a lot of fun. So that was basically it. My son came in and was working as a co-producer on them, and it was kind of a family fun thing to do. And I think those films were really good. The downside for me was that it took me away a lot from directing myself, but it was a lot of fun, and it got me a chance to work with my son too, Jonathan. So it was a good thing for us. Now, the opposite side of that coin is Nightmare on Elm Street, which when I wrote that, I had to give up all rights. So I have no control over it whatsoever, and I had no contact with that whatsoever. I didn't even know it was being made for a long period of time. So in that case, one can only wish them well, but it's not. It's something I wish I had signed a different contract way back then. But the fact was, I was dead broke, and I had no other option. And I thought it was a terrific thing that somebody wanted to make the film. So
I can understand. It's your baby.
Yeah.
Personally, I loved Nightmare Cafe. I love that
Oh,
series.
well, bless your heart.
And I'm a huge Freddy Krueger nut, and I was gonna make sure to tell you thank you for helping me get through high school with Freddy Krueger, because that was one of those things that helped me get through it. But Nightmare Cafe, will that ever make it onto DVD? Because I think it's one of those great series that kind of got it didn't get the what it was due. I thought it was a great throwback to Twilight Zone and that kind of thing.
Thanks. Yeah, we were sad that that was canceled after just 4 and a pilot, but I don't know. I had lunch with David Gerber, who was our producer back when those were being made, and who has since died, God rest his soul. But he was trying to get it to happen, but he didn't succeed, and before he passed. So I just don't know. But to bring it back to my solo take, we hope to be creating a new character like this, the Ripper, who will be just as popular, and the star of that, the person that plays that character will be just as well loved. So I think there's something here for to create a new. I didn't write it to set a new franchise, but I mean it is in the vein of that of a killer who has a lot of personality and a lot of very powerful charisma. So. I would love for Nightmare Cafe to come back, and I would love for this film to enter the ranks of the great franchises as well.
Maybe some way we could get a web series out of it. That would work.
That would be fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Wes. Thank you so much for giving us all these great films throughout your career. You've made many horror fans happy, and you've given us some great entertainment. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jessica.